Hello, I will talk about chess. Chess is an abstract strategic board game and a sport designed for two players. It is one of the most common and complex games existing in human culture. Estimates of the number of legal states in chess range from 10 to the power of 43 to 10 to the power of 120 positions. The game is accepted worldwide as both a hobby and a competitive sport. A person who plays chess professionally is called a chess player. Victory in the game is achieved when one of the kings is threatened in chess by one of the opponent's pieces, cannot eat the threatening piece, or block the threat with another piece, or escape from the threat to a square where it will not be threatened. Now I will talk about basic concepts in chess. The chessboard is divided into 64 squares with 8 rows numbered from 1 to 8. We will relate to the numbers on the left side and not to that numbers, only to the numbers on the left side of the board. So the rows are row 1, 2, row 3, row 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. And the 8 columns marked with letters A to H. So there are 8 columns that called column A, column B, column C, column D, column E, column F, column G, and column H. The squares are painted black and white alternately, or in general a light color and a dark color. So we will place the board so that the rightmost square in the row closest to each player is white. So the rightmost row for me is the row number 1, and you can see that the rightmost square in row number 1, the rightmost square is white. Okay, so that is how we place the board, or that is a rule that we can apply in order to know that the row is placed correctly. Yeah, the board is placed correctly. Okay. Now I will talk about the arrangement of the tools. We should place the tools on the board in the row closest to each player, from outside to inside, from outside to inside. 2 rocks on the outermost squares. That is the outermost squares, and we should place in that square 2 rooks. Okay, this is the rooks, and we should place them in the 2 outermost squares in the first row, as I have already explained. Then 2 knights, those are the knights, and we should place them here. Then 2 bishops, we should place the bishops here. In the 2 central squares remaining in the row, queen in column 4, so this is the queen, and we should place the queen in column 4, so this is column 1, column 2, column 3, and column 4. So we should place the queen in column 4, and the king will be placed on column 5. When the sign is queen in her color, so the white queen is placed in a white square, and the black queen will be placed on a black square. In the second row, on each side, that is rows 2 and 7, rows 2 and rows 7, as I already said, we relate only to the numbers here, not in the other side. So that is row number 2 and row number 7. In those rows, we should place the pawns for the entire width of the row. On all 8 squares, we should place the pawns. This is the pawn, and we should place the pawns on the second row. Okay, we should do the same procedure for the white, for the black tools, of course. I will not repeat that procedure because it is exactly the same. So now we will talk about the characteristics of the tools. And we will start to talk about the most important tool in the game of chess, that is of course the king. The king can move in any direction, one square in each direction, so it can move straight or diagonal, one square in each direction. Okay, one square in each direction. So from this, in this position, the king can move to, in total, to 8 squares. That is the 3 squares, another 3 squares, and another 2 squares. In total, you can move from that position to 8 squares. But there is one exception. When you do the castling, the king moves 2 squares. So when you do a short castling, in order to protect the king moves 2 squares. Or you also can do long castling, and in this situation the king moves 2 squares. That is the exception. Okay. When the king is in a chess position, that is to say, when the king is threatened by the opponent's tool, or it is in a position where the opponent can eat him in the next turn, the threatened player must change this position by moving the king, blocking the attack line of the threatening piece, or by beating the threatening piece. Okay? So if your king is threatened, you must remove the king to a square that is not threatened anymore. That is the rule of chess. That is the rule of chess. Okay? In order to win the game, the player must reach a position where his opponent cannot rescue his king from the threat of chess, or he cannot eat the threatening piece, or block the threat with his own piece. This state called mate. So in order to win the game, you should threaten your opponent's king in such a way that he cannot escape from uh, the threatening by moving the king to another square, because he is threatened in every squares that he moves. So he cannot, if the opponent's king cannot escape from threat, then you will be the winner in the game. Okay? Despite its value as the most important tool, the king's movement is relatively limited. Unlike the other tools, it is not possible to evaluate the king with points for changing tools, because the king is not a tool that can be given up. Yes, that is the reason that the king is the most important tool in the game, because you cannot give up on the queen, on the king. I'm sorry, you cannot give up the queen. So that is the reason that is the most important tool in the board. But in terms of its value, in the sense of the balance of forces and its tactical abilities in the game, it is estimated at about 2.5 points. Because the king has limited range offensive ability, actually he can move one slot in each direction, as I have already explained to you. This ability is manifested mainly in the advanced stages of the game, when there are not many tools left of the board. So the king's strength is manifested especially in the end of the game. Actually, the game of chess can be divided to three parts. The first part is the opening of the game, the second part is the middle game, and the third part is the end game. So in the end game, when there are not many pieces left on the board, then the king is much stronger. Okay? So we finished to talk about the king. Now we will talk about the queen. The queen is the most powerful tool on the board. Its advantage is in the flexibility of its movement, since it can move in any straight line, column, row, or diagonal, and as many squares as it wants in the same row or diagonal. So if the queen is placed in a square that is called d4, as I've already told you, we relate only to the numbers on the right side of the board. So actually we can say that the queen is placed in the square that is, the square name is D4. Okay? From the square D4, the king can move to any square in the black diagonal, or it can move straight and backward, or it can move to the right side or to the left side. Okay, so it can move like this, or like this, or like this. So it can move to any square that I have mentioned. The queen it is customary to estimate the queen at about 9 points. So the value of the king is 9 points. Okay, we finished to talk about the queen. Now I will talk about the rook. So you can see that now the rook is placed on the square that the square's name is E4. The rook can only move along the columns or rows. So it can move along column E to any square. It can move to any square he wants in column E. This is column E. Or he also can move in any square on row number 4. So he can move to any square in column 4. The rooks are usually more effective when they support each other and work as a pair. A special rule was assigned to the rook in the protection of the king during the castling. It is okay, as I have already explained to you, you can do a short castling like this, or you also can do a long castling like this in order to protect the king. There is some rules that apply to the castling and that I will not enter to it, but generally this is something that you can do during the game, long castling or short castling. Okay, it is customary to estimate the rook at about 5 points. Okay, now we will talk about the bishop. The bishop can only move diagonally. So that bishop is in the row, in the black, on the black square, so it can only move on the black squares diagonally. Okay. Also you can move in this diagonal. So you can move in the diagonal from A1 to A8 on the black diagonal, or you can move on the other black diagonal that starts from G1 to A7. Okay. The bishop is the only tool that is limited to one slot color and cannot switch to other color. So we have 2 bishops on the board, and the bishop that is placed on the square E4 can move only on white squares. He can move on the diagonal from edge 8 to edge 1, the diagonal that starts from edge 1 and ends at A8, or he can move on the diagonal that starts in B1 and ends at edge 7. And the bishop that bishop can move only on the white squares, and the bishop here that is on D4 square can move only on black squares. The 2 existing bishops together cover both colors of the board. So in the event that one bishop is lost, part of the control over the board is lost. Okay? It is usually estimated at about 3 points, but with the development of modern chess engines, it has been proven that its value in the relative majority of positions is estimated at 3.25. that is subject to dispute. And there is also a slight advantage to the player who has two bishops against a knight, and a bishop, two bishops against the knight and bishops. The side that has two bishops has an advantage on the side that has bishops and knights, or the side that has two bishops has advantage on the side that has two knights. Okay? Now we'll talk about the knight. This is the knight. The knight has a special movement that combines straight and diagonal movement. Alternatively, its movement can be described as the letter L, rotated in different directions. So actually you move the knight 2 steps to the right side and then one step up. Okay? Or you can move the knight 2 steps to the right side and then one step down. And also you can move the knight 2 steps to the left side and one step down. Okay? Or you can move the knight 2 steps to the left side and one step up. Or you can move the knight 2 steps up and one step to the left side, like this. Or 2 steps up and one step to the right side. Okay? Or 2 steps down and one step to the right side. Or 2 steps down and one step to the left side. Okay? His advantage is that tools don't block his movement and he can jump over them. The knight is especially effective in closed situations and in the execution of a fork. Fork is a threat to several tools at the same time. So in this position, actually the knight threatens to eat that pawn, that black pawn, and also he can eat the pawn that is on square c6. Okay? Or in that situation, the white knight can eat all of the tools that on the board. He can eat all of the each one of the tools that is on the board, because he can eat the two knights. He can also eat the two rooks, and also he can eat the black knight, and he can eat the black pawn, and also he can eat the black knight and the black bishop. Okay. It is usually estimated about 3 points, and slightly less than the bishop. As I have already told you, the bishop is estimated at about 3.25 points. So the knight is only 3 points, so the bishop is a little bit stronger than the knight. Okay. Now we will talk about the pawn. This is the pawn or soldier. You can call it also soldier. The pawn is the last in the hierarchy and the most limited in its movement. Can only move one square at a time and only in one direction. You can move only forward. Forward, that is to say, the opposite direction to the side of the board where it starts. So, if I am playing on the white tools, on the white side, I can move my pawns only forward. Forward is in that direction. Okay, I can move only the pawns only in that direction. And from the point of view of the black side, the forward direction is the opposite direction. For the black side, this is the forward direction. So we can never move the pawns backwards. We can never move the pawn like this. This is an illegal move. This move also is an illegal move. During the first move of the pawn, and only during this, it can move 2 squares forward or 1 square according to the player's will. So, when the pawn is in the second row, and only in the second row, it can move 2 squares Okay, and the black side also only when the pawns are in the 7th row they can move 2 squares. Now the way pawn beats or eats is different from his usual way of moving. By moving 1 square diagonally only in the direction of his progress. So the way that the pawn eats is not the way that he moves. He moves only forward, but if you will let to eat the opponent's tool, then he can eat the opponent's tool only diagonally 1 square. So in this position, the white can eat the black pawn diagonally, like this. Or, for example, the white can eat the black pawn like this, diagonally, 1 square forward, diagonally. 1 square diagonally forward. And also the black can eat the white pawn like this, diagonally. So the pawn actually moves forward and he eats the opponent's tool 1 square diagonally. Okay? Despite being a weak tool due to its limited movement, pawns have an advantage one over the other pieces. If it reaches the last row of the board, it becomes any other piece except for the king of the same color, according to the place choice, even if the chosen piece has not yet left the game. This situation is called crowning. So, if that pawn arrives to the last row, the 8th row, in this situation, it can be replaced to a queen, can be replaced also to a rook, it can be replaced to a bishop, or it can also be replaced to a knight. So you will remove the pawn and, for example, replace it by queen, even if the white's queen is not left the game yet. So in this situation the white will have 2 queens on the board. Okay, so theoretically you can have even more than 2 queens on the board yes, for example, if you arrive to the 8th row, it will become, that pawn will become queen, and also when this pawn arrives to the last row, it also will become a queen. So in this situation, you will have 3 queens on the board. Okay? So this situation is called crowning. It is customary to estimate the pawn in 1 point. Okay? The last rule that I will explain is an en passant rule. En passant rule is a special method of capturing in chess that occurs when a pawn captures horizontally adjacent opponent pawn that is just made an initial 2 square advance. The capturing pawn moves to the square that the opponent pawn passed over, as if the opponent's pawn had advanced only 1 square. So if the white moves his pawn 2 squares forward, then the black can eat this pawn like this. So whenever the white pawn moves 2 squares forward, then the black can eat that pawn like this. The rule ensures that the pawn cannot use its 2 square move to safely skip past an opponent's pawn. Okay? Thank you very much.